Okay, all right. Thank you all for joining us today. So today you're going to hear about how to migrate to Databricks from your existing data warehouse systems. I'm myself Sundar. I have close to 15 years of experience in the data and AI space. I've been having privilege of working in various roles within Databricks. I've been a Brickser since 2020. And somebody if comes up and asks me what do I do daily, I say I passionately solve the migration challenges to Databricks.
Hi everyone, I'm Simon Eligulashvili, a lead specialist solutions architect at Databricks. I joined Databricks in January 2025 through acquisition of Lakebridge, where I was a co-founder and architect responsible for the majority of the accelerators that we've built. My experience spans for about 30 years, but in the last 15 years, I've been focusing mainly on building accelerators for data warehousing and code migrations.
Thank you, Simon. Why migrate your EDW to Databricks, right? When you're working on our on-premise systems, generally those are vendor logged in. You don't get the elastic capabilities which the cloud warehouses offer. It's difficult to onboard new use cases as well. So Databricks is an open platform. It is easy to operate, lowers the cost. We have the wonderful governance tool called Unity Catalog. We have over 10,000 plus enterprises already adopting to Databricks SQL, and there have been performance benchmarks over the years which shows how good Databricks SQL is when compared to other cloud warehouses. And today's session will mostly fall under the fourth pillar, how Databricks today's talk especially is going to stress on risk assurance through tools which can help you migrate to Databricks in a predictable fashion. So I was actually, when I was putting this slide together, I was trying to explain why migrations are difficult, why migrating or shutting down. When I say migrating, not just coexisting, but shutting down your legacy systems are difficult. So Gartner actually put up a very interesting observation that most of the migrations are like a heart transplant. I was actually had a very good joke because I'm from India, but I don't see anybody probably will not be able to follow. But if you ever come to Bangalore, there's a famous bridge in Koramangala, which is the party hub of Bangalore, called Ijipura flyover. We jokingly say that it's like Stonehenge. It doesn't go anywhere. So most of the migrations actually end up being like a Stonehenge, right there, not progressing. So anyways, that was a joke actually. But the other interesting challenge we see when you are migrating from your existing system is your legacy code. And is there any archaeologist in the room? Okay. So migrating like legacy code is like archaeology, right? So you don't know who has written it, when it was written, and what is the business logic around it. It's very difficult to give business users confidence that, oh, you migrated, but does it really produce the same results? Does it really ensure your business operations are not going to be impacted after moving to your platform? There is no guarantee or predictable pathway to it. And here we are going to talk about fast and predictable migrations to Databricks. So introducing the Databricks integrated solution. What are they? They are Remorph, which was our in-house tool, which we started working on a year and a half ago. And then 6 months ago, Simon and his team joined us through the acquisition of Lakebridge. And today, we have integrated the solution into called Lakebridge. Now, after using Lakebridge automation tooling, hopefully there are no doctors here. I'm not going to offend any doctors. Unlike any medical procedures, the risk of migration reduces by utilizing these accelerators. Now, before we dive more deep into the actual tool and how it behaves, I would like to touch upon the pillars of any migration and why it is important, right? So the first concept is on the profiler. This is where you understand your existing ecosystem of your legacy application. What is it about? You get deep insights on it. And then the analyzer portion, which talks about your code analysis, your complexity, planning your migration project. And then finally, the tip of the iceberg, which is your code converters, which helps you convert your code to SQL scripting, your workflows, as well as running an SQL validator. And then finally, this is where most of the projects derail, especially with longer parallel runs to ensure confidence to business. So we have a tool called reconciliation, which will help you in solving that. So all these 4 pillars is what you get when you work with Lakebridge. It's a CLI-based tool currently. It's open source. It's platform agnostic, and it's easily extensible. I will touch on these extensibility a bit more when we talk about converters, why I say that is extensible. Now, let's deep dive into the pillars. So what is the first one is, what is the profiler, right? I think everybody is aware of this famous quote, right? If you have 6 hours to cut down a tree, you spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Everybody knows that. But in order to sharpen the axe, you need to have the right tools. What are the right tools? Profiling is the right tool for you. What does profiler tell you? It actually categorizes your workloads based on your query history. It understands your utilization patterns. It provides you insights and access patterns. Why are these important? These ensure to unearth your ungoverned assets. For example, there might be shadow IT running as a platform owner. You might not even know that there is certain components around which we are not aware of. So these tools will help you in understanding those or unearthing those hidden workloads. Now, what do you get? Like, okay, I have unearthed it. What is hidden for me? So it's important to also understand why Databricks. What will be the cost of operations when I move to Databricks? Yeah, typically, this is an example I come up with. It talks about your current spend, current breakground, what is, if you want to do a BI only migration, or you want to do complete ETL migration, how do I look forward at what will be the potential cost of migrating over to Databricks? Now, I'll hand it over to Simon to talk more about Analyzer.
Thank you. All right, Analyzer. So what is Analyzer? Analyzer is one of the critical tools that you'll have at your disposal during code migration project. Analyzer, as the name implies, analyzes actually code, the code that you're migrating. That includes the store procedures, ETL pipelines, table DDLs, view DDLs, and so on. So basically, it looks at the actual code or metadata, whether it's ETL tools you're migrating or SQL code. Just to draw a distinction between what the analyzer does and what the profiler does, profiler looks at the runtime statistics of your current legacy environment, whereas analyzer looks specifically at the code, at the artifacts that you need to migrate. Sorry. All right. Now, why do we need to run the analyzer? Analyzer is not necessarily a requirement to be executed during your migration project, but it will help you a lot when you run it. So analyzer will produce the estimates for it. It will help you estimate your code migration effort. So it will look at the code. It will uncover the details that perhaps you've forgotten, because these projects have been developed for many years, sometimes even decades, by many teams. So it's very usual, very common not to know exactly what is in your code. So these are some of the things that the analyzer will help you uncover. Better analysis, better understanding of your code will lead to more precise estimates. You'll be able to more precisely estimate your costs and timelines, be able to staff your teams correctly and at the right time. One of the other things that analyzer will bring to the table is the ability to determine interdependencies. Your systems do not work in an isolation. They work in an ecosystem and of your organization. They're all interconnected. So analyzer will tell you what the dependencies are on the code that you are migrating, what types of other systems your code is connecting to. For example, your ETL pipelines might be connecting to web services, or making remote calls and so on, or connecting to 10 different SQL platforms. So these are some of the things that the analyzer will tell you. And again, the goal of the analyzer to get you perhaps more familiarized, or perhaps to remind you what your code does exactly. Analyzer will also uncover some of the patterns that your code may represent. So for example, if you're converting an ETL code base, analyzer will tell you the distribution of the types of components in your code base, and that will actually help you with stage out a large project, break it out into phases, basically use a divide and conquer approach, perhaps. And so ultimately, using the analyzer will lead you to better planning, to better execution, and to much greater risk mitigation, as opposed to going into a project without fully understanding what lies in your code. These are some of the statistics that the analyzer will help bring up to the surface. So when you run the analyzer, whether it's being executed on your ETL code base, or on your SQL code base, or perhaps on some scripting tools, analyzer will first and foremost will take a broader picture, broader look at your code, and will estimate how many complex, how many medium complex, how many low complexity jobs or ETL pipelines you have. That will give you an idea of how complex your project is. And Analyze uses specific algorithms to identify the complexity, which we publish. And by the way, these metrics are taken from a real-life Informatica project. So the next graph there is breakdown of artifacts by the types. For example, mappings, workflows, maplets, worklets. If you worked with Informatica, you probably are familiar with this. The same will be done for other ETL tools. For SQL code bases, the Analyze will give you the breakdown of the types of SQL statements that it finds, whether you're doing a lot of updates or merges, or perhaps you are using materialized tables and so on. These are important metrics because they will drive the strategy for your code migration efforts. So for example, if the number of mappings is almost the same as the number of workflows, then the question arises, why do I need workflows? Why do I need to migrate workflows? And then perhaps the scope of your migration project will drop. The Analyze will give you a distribution of the types of components that are, or types of SQL statements that are used within the code, and that will actually help you stage your migration project smarter. So for example, if only a small part of your code uses complex or exotic components in your ETL tooling, perhaps you want to leave it for later and concentrate initially on simpler jobs just to get the project started and get the teams rolling. So these are all the statistics that, actually not all, but most important statistics that the Analyze will produce. There are a lot more drill downs that the Analyzer will give you. So basically, Analyze will give you a lot of ammunition, if not all, to help you navigate through a very complex conversion project. Okay, so these are some of the sources that the analyzer can penetrate. One thing that's worth mentioning is that the analyzer will never touch your production system. It expects the code to be exported out into a folder accessible to it. The analyzer can run on Windows, Linux, and Mac. So once you export the code, the analyzer traverses the code. It takes usually a few minutes to traverse the code. So in a matter of minutes, you can get something that manually would have taken days, sometimes weeks, to analyze and to execute. The analyzer the analyzer supports about 30 plus different types of technologies, whether it's SQL-based platforms or ETL-based platforms, along with some other scripting languages like Pig, for example. It's important to make sure that you analyze everything that you are planning to convert, because again, your informatic environment or data stage environment does not live in isolation. There are probably some other touch points that you want to analyze as well. So it's important just to feed everything to the analyzer to get the overall picture of how complex your implementation will be. All right, and these are just, was supposed to be an animation, but didn't work. So these are the source systems that the analyzer can penetrate. The way you work the analyzer, at the command line, you execute the command Databricks Labs Lakebridge analyze, and the analyzer will prompt you for one of the 33 options as far as your source technologies are concerned. You choose one, then you provide your source file or source folder and your report file name, and the analyzer will take a few minutes. Occasionally on a large code base, it may take a few hours, and it will produce a report that then you can use and start planning out your conversion. So again, analyzer is a very important step in your migration journey, and I would say that it's a prerequisite to making a conversion project a success. So now let's move on to the converter. So converter, as the name implies, is a tool responsible for translating the legacy source code into Databricks native format. And once in a while, we do get asked the question whether this step is worth automating. And the answer is always yes, it is, because you're usually dealing with a huge code base. Usually, you're dealing with thousands, hundreds, but usually thousands of scripts, thousands of ETL jobs, sometimes different technologies in your stack that you need to convert. If this were a person converting each script at a time, it would take a few hours probably, or maybe a few minutes to a few hours to convert each script. With the automation, you get the benefit of getting code converted, each artifact converted within seconds. Typically, the converter as well as the analyzer, they look for patterns. So the results that the converter produces is predictable, is consistent, because it's a machine implementing the conversion over and over again. The converter will also give you the benefit of scaling out the large conversion project. So you can break out your large implementation into multiple phases. You can have multiple teams running conversions in parallel, and again, the converter will consistently output similar patterns that are Databricks native. Besides the speed and consistency, the converter can also be adjusted or configured to match your organizational or project requirements. So converter internally runs on a set of configuration files, from which you can inherit, and you can basically specify your own requirements in terms of naming conventions, in terms of code styling, and so on. So this is something that some of our users have been using. Obviously, as with any automation, it's the repetitive tasks that you will automate as far as the conversion is concerned. So you can expect the same result from the converter over and over again, as opposed to having a team of, let's say, 50 or 100 people converting code manually, where it becomes very hard to manage as far as the output patterns are concerned. And very importantly, the automation will free up the valuable engineering time, so the engineers can concentrate on other important tasks such as data validation, testing, and optimization.
So I remember I had mentioned Lakebridge is extensible. What do I mean? I was told this was a beginner talk, not to get into details, but I couldn't stop myself. So sorry if I'm going to be nerding out here a little bit. How many of you use IDEs day to day? Can you show an hands? Oh, that's a good amount of audience. Perfect. So when you use IDEs, you might have seen auto-completion, refactoring when you use your IDE, right? So those are implemented by something called language server protocol, where your IDEs are the client and your language server is the protocol. It uses JSON RPC to do the refactoring of code based on the input you type in. So we use something similar to in Lakebridge. Lakebridge is the LSP client, and we have a specified spec through which you can build your own converters, and we can plug that in to Lakebridge. And once you plug that into Lakebridge, you can actually automate your last mile, or you have a better converter, because converters, honestly, it's not a magic wand, right? It cannot get you, say, 100% of conversion every time. There will always be an acceleration to your program, but not 100% converted. So your converter you can plug in your converter, and what you will get is the validator. So right now we have the SQL validator, which takes the output of the converter and validates this, the SQL query, which generates. Now in future, you will also get it for other sources, like for workflows, for AI-assisted validation, so that you can get your code to a much higher degree of automation. So that's a little bit of geeking out about Lakebridge LSP server, and I'll hand it back to Simon.
Thank you. All right, back to the converter. So converter supports migrations from multiple types of technologies, ETL and SQL alike. As far as SQL platforms are concerned, we support the usual suspects: Teradata, Oracle, Snowflake, SQL Server. We support multiple Informatica platforms such as InfoCloud and PowerCenter, DataStage, and there's more coming. As far as the conversion process is concerned and the conversion output is concerned, the converter will produce Databricks native code. When it converts code from ETL technologies, it usually outputs notebooks that are native to Databricks with either PySpark or Spark SQL dialect. And when it converts SQL code, it will convert that to either SQL scripting or SQL scripting procedures. It can also handle table DDLs, view DDLs, and so on. When it comes to orchestrational components such as Informatica's workflows or DataStage's sequences, the converter will convert those to native Databricks workflows. And now I'd like to move on to the demo of the converter. So this is a sample SQL store procedure with the header, with a procedure signature, a few declarations, and a few DML variables. Sorry, a few DML statements with a while loop and so on. So the way you execute the converter is you run the command. Hope everyone can see it clearly. You run the command Databricks labs Lakebridge install transpile. So the install transpile directive will either install the converter from the scratch in case it has not been installed, or it will take you through a set of prompts. So the first prompt will be what type of technology you want to convert, and you get a set of 9 choices. So in this case, I've chosen option number 3, which is SQL Server. And after I do that, there are a couple of other prompts that the converter will take you through, which normally I just hit enter for default. And then at the end, we execute the command Databricks labs Lakebridge transpile. And we provide either a source file or source folder as the input and the output folder as the second parameter. Once we do that, the converter will take a few seconds, and it will output the statistics and create the output file. And the output file, so now there are two files aligned side to side. On the left-hand side, you have the original file, and on the right-hand side, you have the converted Databricks SQL scripting file. So what the converter will first detect is whether we're converting store procedures or perhaps table DDLs or view definitions. In case of store procedures, it will alter the signature, the syntax of the signature of the store procedure. It will make it Databricks compatible. It will also go through all the statements, making them Databricks compatible. So in case there are statements that need to be completely altered, for example, instead of declaring a variable and assigning a default, the converter may choose to first declare the variable and then later on assign the initial value to that variable. It will also alter the syntax of control flow statements like while loops, for loops, et cetera, just to adhere to Databricks' SQL scripting specifications. Now, one of the other important things that the SQL converter will do, it will also touch on every function call that is not compatible with Databricks. And it will alter the function name and potentially the function signature of the calls that it finds it in code. So for example, in this store procedure, we have char index being called with argument 1 and argument 2. That's the green highlight. And then the converter chose to convert it to inst call, where it swapped the arguments. And just because that's how we adhere to Databricks SQL convention. And now really quick, the demo of Informatica to Databricks Notebook. So this is a sample Informatica mapping. It consists of several types of components such as source qualifier, filter, expressions, aggregator, and targets. So when we run the converter, again, the same idea, we run install transpile command. We get the choice of technologies that we want to convert from. In this case, I choose option number 2, Informatica Power Center. And the same process kicks in. A similar command, except that I'm providing the XML file as my input as opposed to a SQL file. And then the converter will actually generate the file that's going to be importable into Databricks as a notebook. It will separate all the commands into separate cells, so it's easier to debug. It's easier to manage the script. Okay? Back to you, Sundar.
Thank you. So now that you have sharpened your axe by running profiler, analyzer, and then you actually done the converter, but your migration project is not done until you decommission your existing system. That is basically plugging out your system from your network. So happy to be part of that. I love to do that. So if you are using this and plugging out any system, please call me. I'll fly in and do the unplugging myself. Thank you. Let me talk about reconcile. So reconcile forms the important pillar to do that. The business needs are very clear. Your users need to have confidence that data and the code converted and the output it's producing is accurate. It also reduces your engineering hours, like your people can work on more innovation, or how do we bring out value out of the data you have moved on. That's why you actually move to the new platform. So you can actually work on real use cases post migration. And technically, how do we achieve it? You need to ensure the schema, the row, column are matching. It has to be fast and accurate so that you can repeat it over the time, understand and explain it easier, and also to be able to operate on the initial large set of load so that it has to be performant, and then also on the incremental refresh, which is going to be on the subset of data. So, okay, how does it work, right? We categorize this into 3 buckets, right? Okay, you want to do, say, I want to do a validation, so I want to first ensure all the data types are matching. Then I will probably ensure none of the keys are missing, right? That's my row. And then once I validate my keys are not missing, I would ensure the exact column value is matching. That's your column. Now, you can do that in 3 ways. You can, the column validation, you can actually do an exact match, saying that, hey, I had ABC, I need to have ABC, especially on the numeric values, right? You want to do exact match. Or sometimes you might choose, hey, I'm okay to have certain differences because of timing issues or explainable changes. You can do it at aggregates. You can set up thresholds as well. So, okay, this is my acceptable ranges. I want to allow the reconcile to fail. You can do both percentages as well as absolute values. Then how do you do it? Filters. You can have transformation, which is like you have a business rule which has changed, or you added a new data stewardship on your data, which mapped your column value to a different value. You can supply those using transformations. You rename the column. You can use column mapping. Then you will have audit control columns, which is your insert date, update date, timestamp, which can be part of your include or exclude list. And then you can also aggregate by key, so you don't need to just run the aggregation. You can also aggregate by a key, particular key, so that you can get the reports matched across 2 systems. Now, how do you run it? Databricks Labs, Lakebridge, configure, reconcile. It'll ask you a bunch of questions and prompts. You just configure them. This is how the output looks like. And then this is the dashboard you get. So you can actually say what is the behavior over a days, what is my source type, what is my, the actual details will be presented to you as a pivot table. So you can actually go and, the developers can actually go and see what is the exact record which is mismatching. So this is what you provide. So, and then, so this is not built in isolation. We have our wonderful customers who've been using this tool. Last year in this very Data and AI Summit, DoorDash actually presented a talk about their internal tool called Transaxle, which uses Lakebridge, which is what we are calling it now, to build their interoperable system. And then what is coming up? Sneak peek into what is coming up next, which is an UI through which you will be able to curate your migration in a much more effective way. You will be able to convert your code, move your data, reconcile. Also, the AI assistant, which will help you do verify and validate your data. And then, last but not the least, I think there is a term called what is my conversion accuracy. So we are working on something to help you decide, okay, what would be the right way to measure your conversion accuracy and your program acceleration, rather. So announcement, tune into the DB SQL keynote on Thursday. You'll have some exciting announcements coming up. And then where to find more information. This is coming through, so please scan the QR code. The more information is getting into the docs as we speak. So after this week, you'll probably have a stable doc and the page with all the necessary information on how to use this tool. Please save this and go back and try this out from next week. And we have 5 more minutes. Happy to take any questions.